In the early morning of October 7th, 2023, a peaceful calm in Israel is disrupted by an overwhelming assault from Gaza. A relentless rocket barrage, consisting of over 3,000 rockets, is unleashed upon Israel, and hostile forces launch incursions into its territory using vehicles of all types, including ultralight aircraft. Palestinian militants managed to breach the Gaza-Israel barrier, deliberately targeting civilians in neighboring Israeli communities, as well as launching attacks on military installations. In the span of just one day, the death toll is racking up the killings of over 1,300 Israelis, including 859 civilians, 278 plus soldiers, and 57 policemen, in military bases, nearby towns, and music festivals. Approximately 247 civilians from several countries around the world, including Israeli civilians and soldiers, were taken hostage and transported to the Gaza Strip, with nearly 32 children among them.
You're watching Dingo.
Meet Hasan Piker. Boasting an average viewer count of over 26,000 on one stream alone, Hasan Piker is, without question, the most popular politics streamer of all time. But with that audience and that great power to drive and affect discourse, there is a responsibility, and in today's video, I'll be making the argument that Hasan and co have shirked theirs. In order to fully understand the situation, and to avoid making this video too long, I want to take a look at just one notable example of Hasan spreading misinformation: the contested strike of a Gazan hospital, which Hasan claims to have certainly been the result of an IDF explosive, despite the lack of conclusive evidence. Rest assured, there are much more, so I'll link some good resources in the description for your viewing pleasure. The strike on the Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza is a contested issue with different parties attributing the cause to different sources. So here's what we do know right now and what we can say. According to officials in the Hamas-run government, missiles were fired at one of Gaza's oldest hospitals, the Al-Ahli hospital. The Israel Defense Forces, or the IDF, stated that the strike at the Al-Ahli hospital came from a failed rocket fired by Hamas from within Gaza, and not the IDF as they had claimed. The BBC, who had been investigating the incident, looked at video footage, still imagery, and other evidence, including eyewitness accounts. Their findings were inconclusive. Some experts say the evidence is not consistent with what you would expect from a typical Israeli airstrike with a large munition.
We contacted 20 think tanks and companies with weapons expertise. 9 of them are yet to respond. 5 would not comment, but we spoke to the experts at the remaining 6. We asked whether the available evidence, including the size of the explosion and the sounds heard beforehand, could be used to determine the cause of the hospital blast. 3 experts we spoke to say it is not consistent with what you would expect from a typical Israeli airstrike with a large munition. J. Andres Gannon, an assistant professor at Vanderbilt University in the US, says that ground explosions appear to be small, meaning that the heat generated from the impact may have been caused by leftover rocket fuel rather than an explosion from a warhead. Senior research fellow at the UK-based Royal United Services Institute agrees. While it is difficult to be sure at such an early stage, he says, the evidence looks like the explosion was caused by a failed rocket section hitting the car park and causing a fuel and propellant fire. Mr. Gannon says it is not possible to determine whether the projectile struck its intended target from the footage that he's seen. He adds that the flashes in the sky likely indicate the projectile was a rocket with an engine that overheated and stopped working. Valeria Scuddo, lead Middle East analyst at Sibylline, a risk assessment company, notes that Israel has the capacity to carry out other forms of airstrike by drone, where they might use Hellfire missiles. These missiles generate a significant amount of heat, but would not necessarily leave a large crater. But she says uncorroborated footage shows a pattern of fires at the hospital site that was not consistent with this explanation.
But while experts and journalists couched their language in statements to account for it being a developing story, Hasan Piker had a different approach to the topic.
What's going on, everybody? I'm not going to do an intro today because while I was in the process of getting ready for the stream, Israel enacted one of the singular worst strikes they have done thus far.
But when more information began to reveal itself during his coverage, he had an interesting response, calling it made-up nonsense.
People in Israel are actually saying that it was a Hamas bomb that misfired. Actually insane that people would think that. Of course it's not insane that people would think that. They have to fucking say completely made-up nonsense, okay?
Hasan Piker has no formal education in how missiles work.
Rip. Oof, they lit that fucking thing up. Look at the traces. This one is literally Arma 3. It's fake. It's Arma. Oh, god damn it!
And while conflicting information revealed itself later, he was forced to walk his statements back.
What I care about is the facts of the matter. Facts of the matter made me lean 90% on the Israeli side, assuming that this is an Israeli bombing yesterday. Okay? I still maintain the position that it is more likely. However, the reality is that now, after looking at all of the new evidence, bomb site that we can lay eyes on, the Israeli counterclaim of this being a Islamic Jihad or potentially a Hamas rocket misfiring is not as unlikely as it was yesterday.
Here's what Hasan said to those who questioned his coverage on the strike.
IDF didn't bomb the hospital. Change title. IDF didn't bomb the hospital. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yes, it fucking did. You fucking piece of shit. Yes, it absolutely did. Fuck you. Fuck you. You genocidal scumbag. You have no fucking dignity. You do not have an ounce of dignity inside of your soul. But it doesn't matter. Terrible that the people died, but I encourage you to look into where Hamas was firing. You fucking piece of shit. You garbage, monstrous scumbag.
But was this walk back enough to undo the damage to discourse his hundreds of thousands of fans who will go on to see the clip would inflict? I would say no. He doesn't even have any real oversight from Twitch to prevent or offset this kind of behavior. Twitch, the platform he streams on, takes a cut of the revenue he earns, and when he's suspended from streaming, he makes less, meaning they're incentivized to be lenient in their treatment of him, while his audience will parrot most of what he says to others. Another interesting example of his effect on his audience was Hasan's discussion with fellow creator Ethan Klein, also known as H3H3. In the stream, Ethan points out how his chat were saying demonstrably abusive things about him, despite the two being friends, and even hosting a podcast together.
Do you care that your chat is calling me racist? Do you make any attempt to modify?
I have not looked at my chat.
Moderate that at all?
I have not looked at my chat at all, but you have
I just
to
opened it, but don't you have moderators? Do you care at all about what your audience says about me?
There's 32,000 people in here right now. The reason why people are saying that is because of the conflations that you made, Ethan. That's why, I can't stop people from viewing you a certain way if you're gonna make these comparisons that they've heard from actually racist people. You literally implied that Jewish Voice for Peace would be akin to a capo in this circumstance.
Oh, you are fucking so bad faith for saying that, and fuck you for even putting that out in the world. That was not my point.
Made this comparison.
My point was that you can find anybody to defend any fucking thing. That was my point.
I don't want my community to hurt your feelings. I don't want your feelings to be hurt
either. They're not hurting my feelings. They're monsters. They're psychotic.
I think you're a good
Not
person.
all of them, but there are a lot of them, and you don't seem to care about moderating it at all.
That's not true.
Whereas when you're on my show, we really do care about what people say about you on Discord and chat, and we moderate it to keep a good environment, but you don't seem to fucking care about it.
There's no way I can shut off my chat.
Hasan's response was to say that he couldn't control them. But I would disagree. I think he can, and I think he has. Here's what Hasan said to those who disagreed with his coverage on the Gaza hospital strike.
IDF didn't bomb the hospital? Change title? IDF didn't bomb the hospital? Yes, it did! Yes, it did! Yes, it fucking did! You fucking piece of shit! Yes, it absolutely did! Fuck you! Fuck you! You genocidal scumbag! You have no fucking dignity. You do not have an ounce of dignity inside of your soul. But it doesn't matter. Terrible that the people died, but I encourage you to look into where Hamas was firing. You fucking piece of shit! You garbage, monstrous scumbag!
If you tell your audience that a group of people are disgusting and monstrous, and then bring them onto your stream, it doesn't matter that they're your friend. They'll still operate off of the parameters you've defined your opposition behind. This sets up an intriguing dynamic. In the past, you had radio stars like Howard Stern or Larry King, who commanded the airwaves with their unique personalities and styles of interviewing. But in the modern era, we're dealing with a different beast. No longer bound by corporate bureaucrats, they're unchained from their responsibilities to be truthful. But here's the question. How does that affect public discourse? And how does that affect people's lives? Well, in order to understand that, we're going to need to understand a little concept I dub the Pundit circuit. Let's take a step back and wipe the slate clean for a moment. Let's imagine a circuit. 4 boards connected to each other by a single wire, feeding back through each other infinitely and generating energy. The board at the top sends a signal to the board below it. That signal gets passed down to a lower one before finally reaching its final stop, the final board, which feeds it right back up to the top and completes the circuit. An ever-continuing, looping exchange of energy and information. Sometimes a lower board, akin to a smaller content creator, picks up some heat, or some drama. This heat is then seamlessly integrated into the cycle, passing right back up to the top, where the ringleader can decide to either dissipate it or destroy it. But what happens when one of these circuits, one of these systems, goes haywire, especially a large network like Hasan's community? Well, I'll tell you, they come together to form a powerful concept we're all too familiar with. An echo chamber. An echo chamber refers to the amplification and reinforcement of certain beliefs or opinions within a self-referential system, for instance, a closed circuit. When a large creator like Hasan Piker makes statements or expresses viewpoints without the checks and balances of formal education, carefulness, couching, or oversight, his large and impressionable teen audience tends to echo and amplify these sentiments. This creates a self-sustaining loop where individuals within his community consume, validate, and perpetuate a particular narrative, often without exposure to diverse perspectives or critical analysis. As a result, his environment fosters a distorted reality, where misinformation is not only disseminated, but also spread outwards into the real world, using the viewer's friends, family, co-workers, or even teachers and tutors. The viewers become agents of the streamer, making it harder and challenging for members of other communities to engage in nuanced, well-informed discussions, and for good faith interlocutors to deprogram the conversation and return it to reality. The echo chamber, when wielded by influential figures, can contribute to both the radicalization and the polarization of public discourse, which can lead to the complete breakdown of discourse. But what happens when you put the leader of an echo chamber on a forum like, let's say, national television? Will he keep up his own narratives and hold to his principles, or will he crumble under the weight of the professionals? Mainstream media. The internet at large has at times had its differences with the network of media organizations that in large part take center stage on information dissemination. but it's not difficult to understand their apprehensiveness to online personalities as they increasingly take over this job for the younger generation. On October 19th, 2023, Hasan went on Piers Morgan Uncensored to discuss his coverage and opinions on the Gaza-Israel conflict, focusing on the strike on the Al-Ahli hospital and his aggressive comments, accusing the host, Piers, of being a propagandist.
My next guest has almost 500 million views for his provocative commentary online, and he's been calling me out for my coverage.
Because he only cares about Israeli citizens. He does not care about Palestinians as human beings. That's why it's apples to oranges. It's like one side is a human, the other side is a barbaric monster child.
I never said that, obviously. He says that he'd like nothing more than to come on to Uncensored and call me a baboon in a suit to my face. Well, here I am, a baboon, and he can join me now.
In whatever conflict we may be in, there are stenographers for whichever party is aligning with the American State Department and the interests of the West in general. And Israel happens to be the one in this ongoing conflict.
I think you're a smart guy.
Piers, let me finish.
I think you've looked at all of this, and I think in your heart, you know this was probably not an Israeli airstrike. And I'm just curious why you would, instead of admitting that as facts change,
that is
your
not
opinion
what I'm
changed.
saying. That is not what I'm saying at all.
I don't understand why you would double and treble down when the evidence is pointing the other way.
You're asking me to be. As far as me being a propagandist goes, everyone is a propagandist. I'm just honest about it. You're a propagandist. We have our biases.
I'm curious who you think I'm a propagandist
for. Honest about my biases.
Who do you think I'm a propagandist for?
Who do I think you're a propagandist for? Whichever every media person is doing propaganda.
But who for? I've got to be doing it with somebody.
You think it's a bad word. I don't. That's just the difference. This is a semantics conversation.
I think it's actually quite a serious charge. Hasan, I think it's a serious charge to level, not on a podcaster, but as a journalist who's broadcasting around the world, who has a reputation, I believe, for being fair and impartial, actually, on these issues. It's quite a charge to just say, I'm a stenographer for the Israeli government, or I'm a propagandist. I don't think there's any evidence that I'm either of those things.
Hasan's narrative quickly falls apart, leaving him to retreat to a familiar self-deprecating tactic.
Not just my perspective on the matter. I'm just a dumb idiot with a Twitch stream who is live reacting to the news and trying to make sense of everything as it's ongoing. I usually have a policy of not covering breaking news, and sometimes that policy is violated. But ultimately, I am not held up by the same journalistic standards, even though I think I do a much better job than most other news outlets in general. So let me.
Hasan, according to Hasan, is both incredibly informed and responsible with his reporting, but also incomprehensibly untrustworthy and inaccurate. But Hasan can't have his cake here and eat it too. Hasan, in a discussion about the problem of saying slurs that can influence your community's notions on what is okay and what is not okay to say, has some key thoughts on responsibility.
What's going on? Some of you content creators on the platform have stopped saying the R word. I respect that. That's great. You recognize how your actions come across. You recognize the responsibility that you have.
I agree with Hasan here. You have a responsibility to your audience and what you leave them thinking. How come he is able to say that he's just an idiot streamer to deflect responsibility for his reporting when questioned by a journalist, but recognizes his large impact only when pointing out the failings of other creators in his own field? How is that not a contradiction in his own values? In Hasan's case, his irresponsible coverage of breaking news and the construction of his community is leaving his audience in an echo chamber and directly causing them to come away with incorrect information that, considering the size of his channel, can have a serious impact on public discourse. But if Hasan wanted to correct this and have a positive impact on political discussion, what could he do? Well, he can conduct thorough research on complex topics before he discusses them, even showing his audience a more refined process of how to come to your own opinions. He can practice acknowledgement of constructive criticism and prompt correction of mistakes, encouragement of diverse perspectives, giving people who disagree with him a platform to present their ideas. He can have transparency about personal biases, he can promote media literacy, and he can even collaborate with experts. But in this lies an unfortunate truth. Hasan doesn't actually have to be truthful, because either way, his fans will always watch, support, and defend him. They are so deeply entrenched in their own biases and in the echo chamber constructed for them that even if Hasan himself apologized and admitted wrongdoing, they'd still find a way to stand behind him on the topic. And herein lies the damage to not only ecosystems of political discourse, but also people's lives as well. Misinformation spreads so quickly on the internet, from a stream, to a clip posted on LSF, to a clip on Twitter, to a clip on YouTube, and before you know it, hundreds of thousands of people will go to sleep with demonstrable views inside their head. If groups of people refuse to act as individuals, as independent thinkers, and instead as stenographers for pundits, personalities, or tweets they've seen online, you face a dangerous future. One where the few decide the views of the many, and in a time where your vote and your opinion as a citizen can have a massive impact locally in your own community, and sometimes even on a national level, irrationality becomes a dangerous virus that threatens to tear through constructive dialogue everywhere, and a population with a hijacked thought process making irrational decisions can threaten the lives of others around the world during critical events. We share videos, tell stories, watch live streams, share clips, repost tweets. That's how a virus works. That's how it spreads. It infects minds and warps opinions. And in an age where vigilance may not be enough, maybe it's time to start holding our thought leaders online responsible for what they say. One of the tenets of democracy is to have faith that your citizens will make the right decisions. So let's equip each other with the right information to make the right decisions. Together, we can make a change. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude.
Saying that you're a stenographer, I said that.
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it, I'm saying it.
Recognize the responsibility that you have.
I'm just a dumb idiot with a Twitch stream